Hello everyone. In this lecture, we'll be discussing the syllabus of economic development in detail. So let us begin. Now before starting, you will see that there are MP, HP and LP written on various parts of this document. Now by HP, I meant high probability or high possibility. By MP, I meant medium, and by LP, I meant low probability or low possibility. Now what I have done is that I have seen previous year UPSC question papers and I have seen the importance of these topics, and accordingly I have classified them in three groups of high, medium and low. That is the probability or possibility of them being asked in UPSC examination. So let us begin. At first, we have Indian economy and issues related to planning, mobilization of resources, growth, development and employment. In this we have planning. In this you should know what is the meaning of planning and what is the definition of planning. Then we have need for planning and objectives. Why do we needed planning at the first place? Because we needed to create an industrial base for our country. Then what was the objective of planning? One of the objective was to provide employment to everyone, to achieve high economic growth. Then we have three types of planning: imperative, indicative and structural planning. In this you should know what is the definition of each one of them and what is the difference between each of them. Say for imperative planning, we have more or less total state control. For indicative planning, there is a mixed kind of economy in which both state and private sector play their part. And similarly, you should find out what is meant by structural planning. Then we have Indian planning history and techniques of Indian planning. In Indian planning history, how was our planning history? One of the planning history is that we went for import substitution under the Maulana Bees model. And what was the technique that was used to achieve this? The technique was high custom duty. Like this, you should know. Then we have achievements and failures of Indian planning. Achievements of Indian planning have been that we have created a good industrial base in our country. Nowadays, we have good number of dams, good number of steel plants, power plants, etc. Then we have failures of Indian planning. What have been the failure? One of the failure is that economic growth was not that much high. The benefit only went to urban areas. Rural areas were deprived of this benefit of planning. Then we have Niti Aayog versus Planning Commission. Why did we scrap Planning Commission at the first place, and why did we brought Niti Aayog? What was the history of Planning Commission? Why is there a need for Niti Aayog? All this should be known to us. Then we have mobilization of resources. Okay, why do we need to mobilize resource in the first place? One of the need for mobilization of resources is for economic growth. Then another need for mobilization is to create infrastructure. These are the need to mobilize resources. Then what steps have been taken or can be taken for mobilization of resources? We have NIIF, asset sales, etc. So these are the various steps that we can take. Then we have role of saving and investment. Okay, how saving and investment can help in resource mobilization. Then how government collect resources via tax and non-tax revenues. Then banking sector, NBFC, capital market, external sources, public borrowing and management of public debt. All these are used for mobilizing resources. The banking sector, capital sector, external sources, all these are used to mobilize our resources. And then you should also know how public borrowing and management of public debt is done. Especially in the times of COVID-19, we have seen a rise in our public debt. Okay, so then we have challenges in mobilizing resources for development. What are the challenges we face? One of the challenges we face is that there is not enough FDI in our country, as there are too many regulations in our country. Then we have low tax to GDP ratio in our country. Like this, there are various challenges. Then we have growth and development. What is the meaning of development and growth? That should be known to us, and the difference between development and growth. See, growth more or less is linked with GDP growth. If you have high GDP growth, then it will be termed as you have high growth. But development has various aspects. It has environmental aspect, it has human aspect, it has social aspect. So there are various aspects of development. Then we have determinants of growth and development. How are growth and development determined, and importance and limitations of economic growth? One of the issues with economic growth is that we have environmental degradation due to economic growth. Then another limitation is that we have rising inequality. Although we are having economic growth, but the inequality is also rising. Then we have issue of jobless growth and the pro-poor growth. What are the steps which have been taken for pro-poor growth? Like we have Manrega, midday meal scheme. Okay, Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Nidhi has been there for pro-poor growth. Then we have balanced and unbalanced growth. What is meant by them, and what are the dimensions of development? Then we have various approaches to development: market-based approach, role of state and planned approach, mixed economy approach, and various other approaches. And at last, we have challenges to development and growth. One of the challenges to development is that our population is not still skilled. Another challenge to development is that our environment is getting degraded. Similarly, we have various challenges to growth. What are the challenges to growth? That due to COVID, our growth has came down nowadays. Similarly, there are many challenges. Then we have employment. In this, what is the nature of employment? There are rural versus urban, formal versus informal. Then the terms related to employment: labor force, participation rate, working age, population, etc. should be known by us. Then sectoral distribution of employment: how is employment distributed? How many are there in primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector? How many are there in formal sector? How many are there in informal sector? Like this. Then what is the quality of employment? That are they getting minimum wages? Okay, or are they getting exploited? So this is the quality of employment. And what we have causes of lack of employment. What are the causes? One of the cause is that we have overpopulation. Okay, another cause is we do not have literacy. There's missing skill among our population is missing. Another cause is we have lack of infrastructure. So these are various causes. Then we have restructuring of workforce. Due to industry 4.0, we need to restructure our population or workforce so to keep it skilled. Then at last, we have government initiatives which have been taken to increase employment. So what are government initiatives which have been taken to generate employment? That should be known by us. That we have Manrega, Pradhan Mantri Employment Generation Scheme. So these are the various government initiatives. So this more or less concludes our part 1 of economy syllabus discussion. We will discuss rest of the syllabus in part 2.